Welcome to Modular Games, everybody. It looks like there is a lot of news dropping last week and this week about D&D 6th edition. If you've heard some other name for it, ignore that. It's 6th edition, I promise. In any case, I'm going to give you a super quick synopsis and give you a few links to other people who have covered this in more detail. Here are a couple of timestamps just in case you want to skip ahead or are already familiar. Okay, first up, weapon masteries exist. It's a fairly short list, but I think it is what most people were hoping for the baseline of what weapon masteries would be available. The ability to cleave, the ability to wield two weapons and be advantaged to do so, the ability to push targets, apparently the ability to deal damage to targets even when you miss, which is kind of nice, not something that I was really hoping for. Many of these things were in the Unearthed Arcana playtesting, and so if you're already familiar, I apologize for wasting your time. Okay, next up, we have the fighter. Details light, the fighter seems to have been amped across the board, but no major reworks. Biggest change for the base fighter is that you have more second wind uses. You can move when you use second wind, and that doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. And at level 9, you have 3 weapon masteries that are in your back pocket all the time, and you can apply them to any weapon you want, which is quite wonderful. As far as the subclasses go, the champion seems to have been smoothed out a little bit. Several features get acquired earlier on, and they just work better. On top of that, you have the Battle Master, and the Battle Master is, the Battle Master. It was already good. There are a few tweaks, but nothing major. The Eldritch Knight is something that you should pay attention to, though. It's much more like the Magus class that you would see in Pathfinder now, because there are no restrictions on what kind of spells you can learn, and in addition to that, you can give up more and more attacks. As you gain more and more attacks on your extra attack option, you can give up more of those in order to cast spells on your turn. First you can do a cantrip, then you can do first and second level spells. Theoretically, you can do both. I think it's probably outlawed, but it would be a lot of fun if you could give up all your attacks and use them all for cantrips. That's probably illegal, but we'll wait until we can actually read the text to find that out for sure. The Psi Warrior is apparently a core part of the fighter now. It's kind of like a Jedi Knight. I've never been super big on the Psi Warrior, but the fact that they can use their supernatural abilities all day long, I am a fan of that. So we'll be learning a lot more about that in the future. All right, next up we have the Paladin, and there are definitely some changes on the Paladin. Most of these are smoothing over ease of access for various powers. There's a thing where the smiting ability was turned into a spell, and I'm sure a lot of people will be upset about that. I think Paladins are fairly powerful, and the fact that Paladin Smite is now a spell means that other classes can get it, but they were already able to get the smite spells that already existed. The biggest change on that one is just that you have to spend a bonus action. And yes, that's a big deal. There's also a new feature that they apparently brought over from 3rd edition where you can summon a mount, but they screwed up somehow, and the mount doesn't scale with your level. What's it called? The spell that summons your mount actually does scale when you upcast it, but the class feature for the Paladin does not scale, so hopefully they'll fix that before they ship out printed copies. Channel Divinity, you get 2 uses, and then a 3rd use sometime later on, I believe it's 6th level, and you get 1 use back per short rest, which means that apparently they still believe in short rests, or people told them to believe in short rests. Let's see here. The auras are all going to be 1 aura, so if you get an extra aura from your subclass, or used to, just remember that it's 1 aura, the range is constant, it applies to all of your aura effects, and it's a lot simpler. The Devotion Paladin does not have to spend an action, and then an action, and then an action in order to set up combat. The Sacred Weapon and the 20th level feature don't eat up your entire turn in order to use anymore. I believe that the Glory Paladin, the Athlete feature, lasts a lot longer, so you can actually use it during exploration. The Aura actually works because you just have to walk through the area of the Aura in order to gain its effect. And I believe, what else did the Glory Paladin do? Moving on to the Ancients Paladin, The aura has been changed so that it protects against certain damage types rather than against all spells and similar effects. That's probably a good idea. It's both a nerf and a buff because it'll work against creature abilities, but resistance to all spells would have been really nice. Resistance to all spells was kind of nice while it lasted. The ability to entangle people now works at a much longer range, so that's going to be a lot more usable. General usability cleanup on that one. The Vengeance Paladin has a similar buff. They were very light on details, but apparently your Mark of Enmity can be transferred just in case the person that you absolutely hate suddenly dies. You can pick somebody else instead. That's kind of nice. After the Paladin, we have the Barbarian class. And it looks like there are ease of access buffs for Rage. One of them that was mentioned is that you can spend a bonus action on each of your turns in order to maintain your Rage. And I never found out about any maximum limits, so theoretically you can keep your Rage up all day long, so long as you spend a bonus action on each turn that you're not in combat, which means that your number of uses of Rage per day doesn't actually matter. Is this a glitch? I think this might be a glitch. We need. Did you want to fix that? Was that intended? I'm not sure. Okay, there's also something called Primal Knowledge where they get to apply their strength bonus on all sorts of skill checks so long as they're raging, and since rage lasts all day long, that apparently means that they can do this forever, I guess? Okay, at 7th level, they can pounce, which means that when they start their rage, they can move. And I guess that means they're going to stop their rage and then start a new one on the same turn so that they can get an extra move action, which is not terrible. Okay, what else? They have a Brutal Strikes feature, which means that if they're using Reckless Attack, they can give up advantage in order to deal more damage, which is kind of stupid at the base level because who wants to give up advantage? But if you have advantage from some other source, then you can apply your Reckless Attack for more damage and get advantage back in order to actually hit your target consistently, because once again, advantage does not stack in this game for some reason. Okay, so on to the subclasses. The Berserker subclass actually functions now because you don't take exhaustion every time that you use your Frenzy ability. You also don't gain an extra attack from it anymore. Instead, you're just going to deal more damage, which is kind of nice, actually. There is a retaliation ability. You used to get this, I believe, at level 14. You get it a little bit sooner. And you have an area effect intimidate power, which is kind of what you want to have as a barbarian that's intimidating people. If the barbarian just screams at the crowd and he's covered in blood and he's got this giant axe, I think the whole crowd is going to be frightened, not just one person. So that's a good feature to have, and putting it on the Berserker is perfect. Okay, the Wildheart Barbarian, previously the Bear Totem Barbarian, is much better because now you can change out your totem every time you rage. The Bear Totem isn't quite as good. It doesn't give you resistance to everything anymore, and there are different options you can choose instead of that, just in case the resistances aren't going to matter at the moment. Also, your level 6 and level 10 features you can trade out either when you rage or on a long rest if they're not based on your rage. The World Tree Barbarian is brand new, and I've got to think this kind of reminds me of Thor or Heimdall, where they're accessing the Bifrost to teleport around the battlefield, or they're taking Mjolnir and throwing it, and it immediately appears back in their hand in order to extend their reach by a certain amount, but they never drop their weapon, apparently. You get a lot of features like that, but I believe that the level 3 feature is that you get to grant your team temporary hit points. The level 3 feature, I believe, is that you get to grant temporary hit points. They haven't told us how this works yet, but I assume that it's an area effect that buffs your party when you start rage, and every turn that your rage continues, you probably renew your own temporary hit points. I don't have any confirmation on that, but I gotta assume that's the simplest way they could implement it for a barbarian. The Zealot Barbarian appears to believe that it is a paladin and doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it can heal itself, they cannot be resurrected anymore, and apparently they have an angel mode. Go figure, I don't understand it. Okay, so those are the full class reviews that we got last week. The partial class reviews are, number one, the Old One Warlock, and it appears that they ripped off several features from the Psionic Sorcerer subclass that we had before and gave them to the Old One Warlock, because you can psionically cast your spells so that they do not require components. You can change your damage types to psionic, to psychic damage. At 14th level, you no longer can steal a thrall and charm someone and make them your dominated pet forever, which means that the feature is not pure evil, and instead you summon something from beyond the veil, and it's Cthulhu itself. It's actually a spell that you had on your spell list already, but the spell is buffed every time you cast it, so it lasts longer and it's more powerful, which is kind of nice. Unfortunately, you can only talk to one person telepathically at a time, which also does not matter since you weren't going to talk to more than one person at a time anyways. You can just switch it every round. Okay, second subclass that was leaked is the Assassin Rogue. You get advantage on initiative checks, which is something that I think Assassins really, really wanted, because it feels terrible to have an ability that relies on acting before your opponents and you don't act before your opponents. Just one bad die roll ruins the whole thing for an assassin. Isn't going to happen anymore. All right, you also have Also, your Assassinate ability is a lot easier to proc because it just works on the first round of combat, but it deals less damage now. It's equal to your level. It's not a crit. You gain your the Impersonation ability that you previously got at level 13 is now at level 9. You also have a Steady Aim ability, which essentially allows you to give yourself advantage on attack once per turn by spending your bonus action. You know, kind of nice little buff to your cunning action there. And an Envenomed Strikes ability. Apparently you can poison your weapon, and apparently somebody said something vague about this being an upgrade to a new core feature for the rogue. But because the core rogue was not released yet, we don't know what that means. Oh, wait a minute, Treantmonk released a video. Go check that out. And the third subclass that has been leaked is the College of Dance Bard. This was also leaked by, I believe it was Ginny D. Definitely Ginny D. And apparently the College of Dance Bard, I love this idea because in movies you'll have this performer, they're required to serve in some type of degrading position, but they randomly go past someone and smack them in the face and deal far too much damage, or pull a dagger out of somewhere and deal far too much damage while they're literally dancing around the room, and we now have a mechanical way to express that. The only problem is you stole all of the core monk class features, the unarmed strikes, the unarmored defense, the ability to move fast. I guess you can donate that movement or share it with an ally, which is kind of nice. And I think the only real width for the College of Dance Bard is the level 14 feature. Gaining evasion is not bad. Sharing evasion with your allies is not bad. It just needs to be a 30-foot radius, not a 5-foot radius. That way, if you're standing in the middle of a street and some evil, crazy person drops a fireball, you can actually save the entire crowd of people. A 5-foot radius is kind of useless, even if the only allies around are your allies. Are they going to be standing within 5 feet of you all the time? Maybe you can rescue one of them. Or none. Or none. But it's an at-will feature, so whatever. You don't have to worry about that. And that is everything we know as of last week. I believe by the time that this video drops, there will be at least 1 or 2 other classes that have been revealed. I suggest you go ahead and check that out, either from the Wizards videos or from Treantmonk's Temple. He's doing a great job reviewing those. Much better than myself, by the way. And I guess I'll see you next time.